Hello, everybody. It's Dr. Annette Feravich here clearly here in the sunshine. Sorry about that. Getting stuff out of my teeth from a little lunchtime munching. Let me try a different. No, I don't want to try a different view because then I get the neighbors in there and I don't really like the neighbors. They haven't been nice to me. They should be nice to me, though. They haven't been. Let's go and let's finish our story, shall we? Here's my little Lucy next to me right here. You can't see her. She's right here. Right there. Say hi, little Lucy. Hi, little Lucy. Okay, let's get to our story, shall we? Our story is on Jane Goodall. Let's do it like that. There we go. And we are on chapter 4 about the chimps is what we're reading. Jane was discouraged by how little progress she was making with the chimps. Then, I want to just make sure I'm all here. Eyes all here. Then, to make matters worse, she and Vanny both got sick, very sick. Most likely, both women had come down with malaria. They had no drugs with them to treat the disease. Jane had been told that there was no malaria at Gombe, so she didn't take medicine along. Jane blamed herself for that. For 2 weeks, Jane and her mother never left their tent. And all they did was lie in bed and sweat. And that's what you do when you're sweating out a disease, right? So there we have another picture of them by our illustrator, who is John O'Brien. Malaria, female mosquito. Malaria is one of the most widespread diseases in the world. People catch it from being bitten by a certain kind of mosquito. Malaria does damage to the liver and to blood cells. The symptoms are high fevers, vomiting, chills, and bad headaches. I'm going to pull it a little closer. People in Africa south of the Sahara Desert are most at risk for malaria. Insect sprays can kill indoor mosquitoes. Drugs can treat the disease, but as of yet, there is no vaccine to prevent malaria. More than 1 million people still die of it every year. 1 million people every year. And we're worried over here about that COVID. I mean, we had to worry about it. It's not that we didn't have to worry about it, but all efforts on a vaccine for COVID when, we clearly see we've been losing people. There we go. To other diseases for a long time. Interesting. It's not a disease that hits the United States, so maybe that's why they're not worried about it. That'd be my guess. For many days, Vanny's fever rose as high as 105 degrees. Both Jane and Vanny were lucky. They recovered. The minute she felt well enough, Jane returned to the forest. Of course she did. That's her love. Let me move this closer. This. There we go. Not what I wanted to do. Sorry about that. Had some adjustments to do because I came outside really quickly. Like minutes before I got on, I decided to come outside. Okay. At last, her patience paid off. It was October. Vanny had gone home to England. Jane was on her own. She began exploring an area she called the Peak. Every day, rain or shine, she climbed up the steep slope of the peak into the forest. Little by little, the chimps became used to Jane watching them. One day, she saw a female hold out her hand to a male who kissed it. She saw 2 baby chimps play tug of war with a twig. So now she said, whoops, here, I don't even have that on there. So now we're finally starting to see the things that she wanted to see. They were hiding from her. So this is the first time after how long? That's amazing. Jane could tell many of the chimps apart, and she gave them names. Flo was an old female chimp. Jane liked Flo a lot. She was a very popular chimp, although to Jane, at least, Flo was funny looking. She had a big round nose and torn ears. Flo had a baby. Jane called her Fifi, and she called Fifi's older brothers Fabian and Fegan. Flo was a caring mother. She protected Fifi from the rain. She carefully groomed her young. Grooming means cleaning their fur. Flo was a playful mother, but she was also firm. She never let her children get out of line. Ollie, who's Flo's friend. Ollie was Flo's friend. Ollie was also a female. Her face was very long and her lips jiggled a lot. Another chimp, a male, looked a lot like Ollie. Jane was quite sure he was Ollie's brother. She named him William. In animal studies, animals are usually given numbers, not names. In fact, many scientists think it's a bad idea to name animals that are being studied. They worry that it will make the animals seem too human. And then if they have to also get rid of them later on, or if they're planning to get rid of them later on, that probably would make it very hard for them to do their scientific studies on them, right? There we have Flo, Fegan, Fifi, and Fabian. Jane definitely did not think of the chimps as human, but she did see the chimps as individuals. They had different personalities. William was timid and fearful. Gilka was a show-off, always looking for attention. Frodo was a bully, a dangerous bully. One time Jane had been watching Frodo when suddenly he charged. He beat and kicked her. Frodo started to leave, then came back, beat Jane some more, and dragged her to the edge of a cliff. What did Frodo do next? He threw her over the side. It was a steep drop, but luckily there were bushes that stopped Jane's fall. Even so, she was banged up pretty bad. Of course, he beat her up. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, how horrible. Look at that. I mean, they're not showing that, but they show her there. There's Jane. He threw her over a cliff. Boy, he didn't like her. Can chimps learn? For many years, scientists tried to teach chimps to make the same sounds as humans do. No one ever had success. Chimps' vocal cords make it impossible for them to speak. Then, in 1966, two researchers tried something different. They began teaching American Sign Language to a 10-month-old chimp named Washu. In time, Washu learned to make the signs for about 130 words. Sign for water, sign for bird, swan. But was he able to communicate his thoughts as necessary, right? As necessary. And from what I understand, that was it. That was the extent of it. No matter how much they tried, they really could not get them to really communicate their wants, needs, and desires. They could repeat things, they could memorize, but that was it. Human language. According to their teachers, Washu could also create a word when she didn't know the sign for something. On seeing a swan, Washu made the signs for both water and bird. Did this mean Washu understood words? It certainly seems so. However, to many scientists, this did not count as truly learning a language. Language involves making sentences, using grammar, and having conversations. None of these chimps could do anything like this. That was still pretty good. I think that's water and bird. I think that's pretty good for swan. In many ways, the chimps behaved like humans. Though unable to speak, they had their own means of communicating. Jane learned to tell what their different grunts, pants, and screams meant. For example, chimps greeted one another with soft panting grunts. A certain loud scream was a cry for help. Chimps, like humans, expressed feelings through gestures. They hugged and kissed one another. They bowed to show respect. They patted friends on the back for comfort. They also shook their fist or threw rocks to show anger. To Jane, naming the chimps just felt right. Did Jane have a favorite chimp? Yes. Jane called him David. David Graybeard, because of the silvery hair around his chin. In one of her books, she wrote, David Graybeard had the most beautiful eyes of them all, large and lustrous, set wide apart. They somehow expressed his whole personality. So there's a picture of John O'Brien's version of Graybeard. David Graybeard had a calm nature and was not afraid of Jane. He was the first chimp who seemed to accept her. One day, Jane held out a piece of fruit to David Graybeard. He came up to her, took the fruit, and then held her hand in his. Can you imagine? Oh my gosh. What a special moment that was for Jane. David Graybeard taught Jane Goodall a lot about chimpanzees. For a long time, scientists believed that chimpanzees were herbivores. Herbivores are animals that eat only fruits and vegetables. They do not eat meat. But one day, Jane saw David Graybeard and several other chimpanzees in the upper branches of a